Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Bougie Astrology, and we're going to take a deep dive look at the new moon in Scorpio and the Mars rebirth, because the way this week is going, we have things that are meant to come to the surface, that are meant to start, that are meant to either come anew or get renewed in some way. There is going to be some things that are below the surface that are boiling up that we're all going to be dealing with. And I want to put a little bit more emphasis on this week, not so much in regards to the activities like I do in the weekly forecast. I want to put some emphasis from the beginning as to some of the internal things that people can deal with this week, as well as some of the external things that result in internal things going on this week. Now, trigger warning and big fair warning to everybody. Some of the things that I talk about in the very beginning of this episode can be really, really rough. And if you're not anticipating that, if you're just starting to listen to me, I do different things in regards to different forms of astrology. I help people with fertility astrology. I help people with medical astrology. I help people with their actual charts and their forecasts. So I'm really multi-purpose in the way that I do my readings, mainly because I go off of intuition. And if my intuition says I need to put more emphasis on one area versus another, then I listen to my intuition, because when I don't listen to my intuition, I usually end up regretting it. So there's that. So this new moon in Scorpio is in a conjunction to Mars. This new moon in Scorpio is in an opposition to Uranus. After the new moon perfected, the sun went into an actual opposition to Uranus. Now, for some people, whatever energy plays out on Monday and Tuesday, I said this in the podcast for the weekly episode, I'm saying it again now, is a direct result to what happened during the Mars-Uranus opposition. Some of us had a physical event that took place. We caught somebody in the bedroom that didn't need to be in the bedroom. We were out at a sporting event and we saw a hellacious injury, or we experienced the hellacious injury. One of my clients had the injury and she messaged me this morning going, "Oh, hey, remember what you said?" And I'm like, "Oh, girl." "Oh, wow." Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. Like, there's nothing I can say. It's like, I can be an asshole with everybody, and sometimes I do sound like an asshole going, "I warned you." But at other times, I'm like, "Oh, it still sucks, though. It really sucks whenever I see somebody get injured." I'm like, "Ow. Okay." Well, that's how it manifested. We have ways that astrology manifests in our lives that is beyond just the day-to-day of like, "Oh, this sounds hopeful, and this sounds great, and this sounds wonderful, or this sounds terrible." And I like to make sure that everybody has a better perspective of that. Given the way the transits are laying out this week, given the way that we have that new moon conjunct Mars, and it's like we spend this entire week getting closer and closer to arriving at something, or having something get revealed, or something come to the surface based off the Sun-Mars conjunction, I feel like not everybody's going to be dealing with a physical situation or a real life situation. There will be some people that have to deal with other things that are going to be internal. And in the intro of this episode, I want to put a little bit more emphasis on the internal things as to some of the things that I've seen. I warned for part of them. I want to put a little bit more detail into this from the beginning this time, because I think it's necessary. Mars is the god of war, but we're not always at war, but we're not always sitting still, so we have to have some type of action involved. When we have actions, then we have the potential of falling on our face, breaking an arm, breaking a leg, bruise, cuts, falling down. These types of things are all related to Mars. As the Sun and Mars get closer together, there is going to be a clumsy factor that many of us are going to deal with. If you are Mars ruled, this is another day in paradise, because we're already clumsy. Mars ruled people, we have a tendency of just magical bruises all over. Where did those come from? I don't know. You walk, you bump into something, it's like your hips are bumper cars, your legs are just always covered in bruises in some way, and you have no idea where they came from. There can be things tied to that. Now, whenever it comes to the new moon's energy and some of the things that can take shape, there can be a lot of things that are tied to mental health this week. The deeper and heavier things go into mental health can result in a physical action. If you know somebody that has been struggling with mental health, I suggest you check in on them. I suggest the additional aid for those people. If you can, if you know, if you don't, I understand. But later on, if something is to come about in your surroundings tied to somebody's mental health, this can have a weight to it if you're not anticipating it. So this is a big week for people that need to be aware of mental health, especially if you've had people in your life that with like PTSD, they've been in war before, they've been in horrible actions or activities before, and there can be a weight to parts of this week. For some people during the new moon, for other people, it's going to be closer to the end of the week, because I'm paying attention to the fact that once the sun and Mars actually hit their conjunction, at the same time, the moon is going to hit a conjunction to Pluto. The moon will conjoin Pluto. The Mars rebirth is going to be in a trine to Neptune. There's so many layers to how this can go, and not everybody is going to be dealing with it in the physical form. So let's, like I said, mental health, people with PTSD, they can be easily triggered. You can see people that are starting to struggle with certain thoughts. There are outlets and numbers, especially here in America. I know I have people in other countries that listen to me too. There are outlets in America that you can actually call for mental health support now. That's completely free. If you have someone in your life that you know struggles with mental health or struggles with PTSD, tune into them, check in on them, see if they need anything. Sometimes just that little extra of care and consideration is all that person needs to pick their mood up and pick their activity up. This is why I'm saying tune in. That's a big one. Accidents, physical harm, cuts, bruises, fighting. The closer the sun and Mars can come into a conjunction, there can be fighting. There can be frustration. There can be deep-seated residual feelings that haven't been able to come to the surface that do erupt. And notice I said erupt. They will have another effect in another area of life. Some people will be completely blindsided by the eruption, but there can be an eruption. Fever, infections, anything tied to the blood. You guys have heard me talk. I always go towards like blood pressure, blood sugars, and things like that. But anything tied to the blood, that also includes infections of the blood. I had, the Mars retrograde in Aries. I think that was 2020. I'm starting to blur my dates now. I had a magical, mysterious infection hit my bloodstream that I had no cuts or anything that could explain, but sure as shit, Mars retrograde in Aries, it was a couple years ago, a bacterial infection manifested in my bloodstream that nobody could explain. So that was fun. There can be the findings of an infection, the findings of something in the blood, tied to the head. Inflammation in the body, flare-ups in the body. So not just the inflammation in the sense of like, I'm really stiff and I can't turn it so much, but like, think of the physical rash. Think of shingles and things along these lines. Think of these types of flare-ups that would be topical. That can come to light this week. Eczema, not as a horrible thing to talk about. You can have flare-ups tied to that this week. This is a big week for physical flare-ups. Fevers, anything that's going to create a heated up feeling in the body. Your blood pressure can also be tied to things tied to the heart. and your circulations. So be aware of like heart attack and stroke. Cysts. A cyst can develop anywhere, and that's a Mars thing. Given that Mars does rule the head, there can be things tied to migraines. You guys have already heard me talk about this one. I've had the migraines for the last week. So tied to migraines, can be tied to sinus problems because your sinus cavities and this is all attached. So this kind of thing can happen. Again, circulation, muscular strain, muscular pain, muscular inflammation. Mars also has a tie to sexual organs. Now, it's usually more male masculine sexual organs, not necessarily the feminine. But if you are a Mars-ruled individual, I'm not counting you out. Sexual organs, sexual health. But that can also go into sexual desires. There can be this burning desire that comes through. And that's not necessarily negative. But if you have a burning sensation in that area, that can be negative. So again, sexual organ health, anything tied to that area, be aware. Given that the Sun-Mars rebirth is going to be in a conjunction, or not a conjunction, in a trine to Neptune, it can also have one physical effect that impacts a whole other area. Not everything with Neptune is about lies and deception. Not everything about Neptune is tied to the spiritual world and woo-woo stuff. Sometimes Neptune is your lymphatic system. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, so your feet. Your feet. You can have something going on where you try to walk and you step wrong. That's a Neptune thing. It can be a Jupiter thing, but in this week, in the way the transits are going this week, it's going to be a Neptune thing. Your lymphatic system, any type of like fluid in the body that isn't easily like explained, Neptune. You can have a sudden bump or bruise that results in, I'm going to say a cyst, but like blistering could also be this. Something that causes a pocket of fluid, a pocket of something on the body, in the body. So understand that there can be a physical health effect to this week. And given the way that the Sun-Mars conjunction is happening, going the fact that Scorpio has so many things that are tied again to underground, underworld, under surface, not all of us are going to be dealing with a real life effect of like, oh yes, there was a drug bust in my neighborhood. Oh yes, there was some, I don't know. I just want to go with drug bust for whatever reason with Neptune right now. Somebody got caught doing something underhanded. Somebody got caught lying. This revelation of the new moon in Scorpio and the Sun-Mars rebirth, this energy, this sudden energy that plays out, results in a whole other effect being recognized, being found out, being understood. We're seeing something else take shape. So there can be huge physical effects to this week. And I want to make sure people are far more aware of that before we get into like everything else. Not everybody's going to be dealing with a physical aspect. Some people will be dealing with both an internal physical energy as well as the external. This new moon in Scorpio can bring things that have been below the surface to the surface. Things that have been boiling below, simmering. For some of us, it has been a passion. For some of us, it's been a desire. For some of us, it's been a purpose. And based off of the way the energies flow this week, those desires, that purpose, those needs, those wants will come to light. They're either going to help us break out of certain types of confusion, or they're going to create new forms of confusion, depending on where we're at in life. I don't mind the Mars rebirth. Given that Mars is in its own sign, it's in its own rulership area, I feel like whatever comes to light or what comes to the surface is meant to happen this week. It is meant to be recognized this week. It is meant to be seen. Given the fact that the eclipse axis is also including the North Node going through Aries, going through Mars's sign, I feel like it is this week of understanding our new purpose and having certain things arise and certain things coming to the surface that is going to give us an inkling, a recognition of where we're going to have gains later on, specifically with the eclipse seasons. This year's eclipse seasons, they didn't have a counterbalance. Next year's will. We're in a whole 18-month cycle, an 18-month cycle that started in July, that is going to be volatile all the way through. We started the eclipse axis in a Venus retrograde. We're ending it in a Mars retrograde. We are going through a very volatile time on more than one level. But that volatility doesn't necessarily need to be bad. It just means that there's going to be rapidness. Mars is the ruler of the head first, impulsive. There are going to be a lot of impulsive energy going on this week. But the impulsiveness is like we've been sitting on something for so long and I'm like, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of being in limbo. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired. We gotta move. We gotta go. We gotta do something. There will be actions and activity that follow the energies of this week. Some of us, we already know what's unfolding because as soon as that Mars-Uranus opposition hit, it manifested into something in our actual lives. Some of us, it's been hard to pinpoint. Oh, I kind of feel stiff. Maybe it's going to be a physical thing. Oh, well, I kind of, I'm kind of getting annoyed with people. You don't kind of get annoyed. You know when you're getting annoyed. Sometimes it's not going to be a nuisance. Whatever comes to light this week, whatever comes to the surface this week, it's meant to come through. And for some of us, it's going to happen to us and our individual lives. For others, it's going to be like in their surroundings, with the people that they surround themselves with the energy that they surround themselves with. There is a newness in the air. New passion, new desire, new drive, new symptoms, regretfully. New ways of doing things, a new energy that is starting to unfold, that is starting to arrive. And it goes through this entire week, one part based off of the new moon, the other part based off of the Mars rebirth. It all happens this week. So we have many, many layers that are going to come through. Again, some of us are going to be dealing with this on the internal. It'll internally manifest into something. For some of us, we're going to be dealing with the external things. I've talked a lot more about external things on the prior episodes. This time I wanted to put a lot more emphasis on the internal. Look at my notes. I'm looking. I don't have anything else coming up. So, for those that have never listened to a podcast episode before based off of a new moon or full moon, the way that I read everything is based off a whole house system. To me, I don't care if your ascendant is at 2 degrees or 25 degrees. Whatever sign your ascendant is in, that entire sign is your first house. And the way that I associate everything is that every numerical house that follows is now associated with the next zodiac sign. So, of course, we always start in Aries. That is the first sign of the zodiac. Every numerical house that follows will be associated with that next sign. So, for Aries and Aries risings, we have a new moon and a chart ruler rebirth, because Mars is, of course, your chart ruler, in the sign of Scorpio in your 8th house. Financial. Other people's money, your money. There was most likely something that is occurring in the process. So occurring either over the last few weeks, I shouldn't say weeks, last few days, going into this week of something else, a financial debt, somebody else's legal situation, a financial issue tied to another person that is suddenly costing you money, unexpectedly costing you money. It can be a coworker, it can be a client, it can be a colleague. This is based off of the new moon's energy. Given the fact that the Mars rebirth, though, will be in a trine to Neptune, and Mars being your chart ruler, some of the things that might come to surface that require money in some sort can actually be tied to addictions. It can be tied to rehabilitation. It can be tied to health care. It can be a payout or a payoff in some way. We want to pay somebody off so they don't talk about things. Give them an NDA, like just shut your face. Some of you might be having to travel based off of having to go pay these things out. You're not just doing it because it's somebody that lives in your town. Oh, no. You're having to drive a state away and go handle some business that you were not anticipating. It was very, very sudden, whatever has come through in the last few days. And for many Aries risings, it is something that's going to cost you money. If it's not necessarily costing you money, it can be like we have to suddenly sell something to pay someone else. We have to sell the extra car. We're having to sell something in the garage. We're having to sell some of our tools. We're having to sell something, a collectible, something of the sort, to pay a debt, to pay a bill, to pay a situation. There are things tied to assets and finances, but there can also be things tied to medical, rehabilitation, and addiction. And the addiction part for you guys is mainly based off of Neptune in the 12th. And the fact that last week, right as we were starting that Mars-Uranus opposition, Mercury went into Sagittarius, which is your 9th house, and hit that square to Saturn. The unexpected responsibilities, the needing to step up to help somebody clear something out. Some of you are the ones having to go do the rehabilitation. Some of you are spending that money and traveling somewhere to work on your stuff. Mars is your chart ruler. That rehabilitation could be yours just as much as it could be for somebody else. Death, debt, taxes, inheritance, these are 8th house things. If you do this, you're not necessarily going to be telling everybody. For some people, they have no clue what's going on in your life. And you're keeping it a secret. For some of you, that what's going on is a secret is about to come out. Unexpectedly. If you have a secret that you're holding, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of what's going on. Be aware of the other people involved. Majority of what's happening around Aries rising this week is very much tied to other people. Either working with other people, or having to pay off other people, or having to help other people, or deal with certain things. You can, again, have a sudden bill that comes through that requires you selling one thing to pay it off. We're selling Grandpa's car to pay this bill. And all of it seems very, very unexpected. So be aware of having to spend extra money. You've probably already had to do it, in all honesty. Okay. For Taurus and Taurus risings, you are the loose cannon. You are the loose cannon. People around you, people that's going on, there can be a lot of activity, a lot of excitement and everything else, but you can also feel like you're having to walk on eggshells. You had to deal with it this weekend. You could still be dealing with it as you go into Monday and Tuesday. And not necessarily knowing what's the right thing to say, what's the wrong thing to say. But for a lot of Taurus risings, you are the loose cannon. You can have something going on in the family, something going on in your health. You can have something going on in regards to your routine and having disruptions in your routine. There can be things going on with another person, with other people in general that had some level of excitement. But again, one wrong move, one wrong thing, one wrong moment, and boom, their actions pissed you off. Their actions made you do something. Their actions instigated something within you based off having Uranus in the first. As we deal with things later in the week, whenever we get to that Mars rebirth is going to include a trine to Neptune in your 11th house of friends. So some of you might have to deal with the fact that whatever dealt with other people, those people are now talking to your friends and like, I can't believe she acted this way. I can't believe she did this. I can't believe she said all that. Oh my God. Because some people got a big mouth and they don't know when to shut up. Be aware of the things that are going to get said about you. Be aware of the things that could be getting said about you. Your biggest focus right now should be whatever you need to deal with in regards to your health, and whatever you need to do in regards to your routine, how you can be rebuilding certain things for yourself. Because I do feel like because we're still in this aftermath of the Venus retrograde that happened in Leo, especially for Taurus risings right now, we need to revamp. We need to revive. We need to renew. We need to redo. You guys are in a revamp energy. And anyone that comes in and tries to mess up the routine that you're trying to build, mess with the things that you're trying to do, again, you're the loose cannon. There's a lot of pressure on Uranus that happened over the weekend. There's a lot of pressure on Uranus in the first part of this week. And it could have another effect later on that we're not anticipating. Specifically closer to the end of the week whenever we get to that Mars rebirth energy. Be aware of what you said or how you said it to certain people, because it's most likely going to come back around in like the telephone game aspect and it's not going to be clear. Or if it is clear, then you just got to own it. Oh, yeah, she did piss me off. I don't really care. Oh, yeah, I did go off on her and she deserved it. Oh, yeah, I did break up with him. He was doing things he shouldn't have been doing. He was the one that got caught in the room that wasn't supposed to. Be aware. Okay, for Gemini and Gemini risings, there can, again, this with you guys, health. Your health, the health of a loved one, disruptions within your work, disruptions within your routine. There can be a lot of things that come to the surface this week. Whenever it comes to Gemini risings, it is specific to that sexual organ health that I'm really nervous about with you guys. Some of you have been trying to do things within the family. Your focus has been on kids and having kids or things along these lines. Some of you might be dealing with the actual health of your children. And that's what's disrupting your routine. But there is something very much tied to health going on this week with you guys. So I'm whatever you've had going on, be very, very aware of that. If you've had things going on at work, you can have certain insecurities. You can have certain things come to the surface. Some of it might be a lie. Some of it might be the truth. Especially when it comes to Mars. Many of you are still riding the energy of what happened of that Mars retrograde, and you're not going to really be done with it until Mars goes back into Gemini, and that's not going to happen until next year. We have to go through the full cycle, and it takes Mars 22 months to do a full cycle. So you'll be dealing with certain things that can go all the way back to like decisions and things that were tied to earlier this year, specifically March. But the human effect is it could actually be a little bit earlier, February, January. If you took a job during that time, if you took a promotion during that time, if you took something during that time, now you can have some additional energy coming about from that timeline, from those events, from those situations. And some of it could be something that's very, very truthful, because a lot of Gemini risings, y'all did some very interesting things during that Mars retrograde. But in other ways, it could be something completely different. You made an agreement, you did a decision, you had something going on during that time, and now as things have progressed forward, you're realizing whatever that decision was, whatever that agreement was, whatever you were doing then, might not be working the same, might not be feeling the same. And we have this disruptive energy making you realize that maybe we need to renegotiate what's going on with another person. Maybe we need to deal with a specific coworker, with a specific client, with a specific colleague that we weren't anticipating. And that can be a part of what reveals itself this week. So not all of it's going to be health related to Gemini risings, but much of it can be. If you had something tied to a coworker or colleague or something regarding work, I feel like you've already had the warning, and you got the warning last week, Friday, whenever the Mercury-Saturn square occurred. So whatever goes on this week, many of you have already had an inkling. You've had the warning based off of that energy. And it's going to continue to climb from there. Some of you have had your words come back and bite you. Okay. For Cancers and Cancer risings, a new moon in your 5th house of love, luck, joy, romance, happiness. But it's in a conjunction to Mars. Many Cancer risings, you guys have been feeling that sexual energy. It ain't done either. The difference with Cancer risings compared to some of the other signs is I get really clued into, you guys need to know the difference between a friend and a lover. Some of you do know the difference, and as much as your desires are coming through and this passionate energy is feeding into you, you're feeding into it with the wrong person. Or you're telling them the truth. Like you're with that Uranus opposition, it's like telling them, like, look, there's no chance between me and you. I don't feel for you that way. I'm not interested in you that way. This isn't my thing. And they might not take it well. Some of you might be the other way around. It's like, this guy has been in the friend zone for a really long time, and all of a sudden we're going to give the friend zone guy a chance. And it might be very passionate. It might be very helpful. It might actually reveal a lot of different things that you did not realize that you could feel for this person. But there are tests for Cancer risings regarding what we look for in a partner. Not only do you have this new moon opposite Uranus, but you're also still wrapping up your Pluto cycle going through your 7th house. You're wrapping up and you're learning some final lessons tied to partnership. Now, some of you, it's not sexual desires at all. Some of you have nothing going on with a friend. We're not single. We've been married for years. So what you can have is certain things, again, tied to sexual organ health, menopause. You could just be feeling that antsy sexual desire, but you can also have something be revealed around your kids. You can discover that the kids have been sneaking out of the house, Sun conjunct Mars, this disruptive energy. You can discover that it's been going on all school year and you had no idea, but the whole reason that you found out was because they didn't necessarily get caught, but one of their little friends got caught and you got called by one of the parents. Did you know Susie's been sneaking out at night because her and Joe got caught the other day? No, I had no idea that Susie's been sneaking out at night. How did you catch Joe? I caught Joe because he came in the next morning. Apparently Joe stayed the night in your house and you didn't know about it. Things around health, things around kids, things around lovers. as a big portion of this energy. And a lot of Cancer risings, I know you guys are dealing with the high core sexual energy. You need to understand that this is baby making energy. And if you are not set up well for that type of situation, you might be making a baby without the goal of making a baby. So be aware, be aware. You can also have disruptive things tied to other people that bring back like childhood memories this week, going into that health and that mental health thing. You can be in an event or be in a situation that literally brings back old memories, that triggers you unexpectedly. You've never been triggered like this before. You've never felt something like this before, but this triggering lets you know of things that you need to work through and that you need to heal. It's all very different energies that can come through, but we're all at very different stages of life. Cancer risings. Okay. For Leos and Leo risings, this is a new moon in your 4th house of home, home life, roots, family, ancestry, genetics. 4th house is going to be genetics, the things that you inherit, specifically from your maternal side, usually with the 4th house, but genetics. There can be a new thing going on at home, a new beginning, a new chapter going on around home within the family, around mothers and matrons within the family. Some of us were just doing a big upgrade and you're like, you know what? We're going to donate everything in the house and I'm buying all new furniture. Really? Yes, because I'm sick of that couch and I'm sick of this too. I need a new mattress. We're just going to go and hit it all at once. And the mundane way that this new moon can manifest for a lot of people is to do those upgrades within the home. Do something like this. Do an expansion of some sort, working out a plan to expand one area of the house. If the idea is to expand one area of the house, some of you might have to get a renovation loan. And given that the Mars rebirth later this week will be in a trine with Neptune in the 8th house, we can be taking out like a HELOC. We can be taking out a renovation loan. We can be taking out additional money. We can be borrowing money from someone to do something in the home with the family. Some of you might be looking at the idea of investment properties, buying a house or dealing with something with an investment property. The 4th house is home, home life, and family, but given that trine to Neptune, this can be investment properties. You can be having to sell off an investment property. You can have an interest in buying an investment property and putting all of this emphasis suddenly on how you work through renovating it to make it an income property or flipping it. This isn't really a great market to go into flips right now, but people do what they want to do in the way that they do it. There's no hate there. Given this new moon is in the opposition to Uranus, though, having something going on in the home, having something new going on within family, can have a career goal in mind. Some of you might have just had a sudden opportunity at work that impacts the family. And what is going on this week is getting a plan together and talking about the idea of moving for career, moving to a new place, moving to be closer to family. Maybe there's something going on with another family member. And the idea is that we need to move closer. Even if it's not in the immediate, we have to start working out the plans to move closer. We can have that eruption of something going on in the family that leads to moving later. And the kids might not necessarily be happy about it. They can be a little confused. What do you mean something's wrong with Grandpa? What do you mean we might have to move back to Arkansas? What do you mean we got to move to Texas or Kansas or wherever? I like it here in California. It don't matter. If that's the necessary energy, if that's what's going on, understand that there can be eruptions and erratic things around family this week that can either lead to a move later on, that can lead to a change in your life path and in your career. There can be things around the family itself, the family home, having to take out a loan, having to renovate something. But for a lot of Leo risings, there can be a lot more things tied to a physical event. But again, going off of the genetics aspect, things tied to the heart and matrons and mothers. Be aware of the health things too. You guys have Pluto, the other ruler of Scorpio, in your 6th house of health. So be aware that whatever's going on with the family can be a health-related issue for you guys too. I feel like if you're going to be dealing with that though, it'll be closer to the end of the week than the first part. Just so you guys know, the end of this week going into next week. Okay. For Virgos and Virgo risings, y'all got some decisions to make. Now, some of you are feeling the urge to drive off into the sunset. We want to travel. We want to move. Some of us, we're going to have some tense communication within the family. We're feeling very pushed to make a decision within the family, with our home life. Some of us are being asked by a partner to move in together, to take the next step. There is a big push to make a decision. Mercury is your chart ruler. Mercury's in your 4th house of home, life, and family. The start of that Mars-Uranus opposition last week included a Mercury-Saturn square. There is a decision in this energy. This can be a very disruptive decision, pivotal or chaotic disruption. Some of us, that Mercury square to Saturn was not a partner issue, but it was a authority figure issue. And again, there was a decision regarding yourself, regarding your home, regarding your family, that is going to be directly tied to an authority figure, that's directly tied to a legal matter. Some of you are going through divorce now that Saturn is direct in your 7th house. You're having to start something from scratch. If you're going through those legal battles, that legal situation, the issue can be around talking about who's going to keep the family home. Can one spouse versus another afford to keep this home if we get divorced? Some of you financially won't be able to afford it, and you're going to realize that. The Venus retrograde this summer was in the 12th house. There was a big form of like undoing. And what happens next is going to be tied to a lot of that energy. And I'm only saying that with you guys because while Venus was retrograde in your 12th, Mercury was retrograde in your 1st. A lot of the decisions that are going on right now for you guys are about your assets. It's about your money. And it's about family. Some of you just want to get out of town. You want to go on a trip. You want to go on a quick family trip. You're working out the details of like going on like a Thanksgiving go away or getaway type thing. And that's a big possibility. Not everybody's dealing with the worst decision in the world, but there is a very big decision that's coming through that's going to create a rippled effect of disruption between another person and your home life, between a legal situation and your family and your home and the actual structure. Again, there's a decision in the energy, I feel like, with Virgo risings more than anything else. Some of you are having to really rethink and re-strategize the way that you're going to do things. And you feel like you're going to get something figured out. And there's a big chance that it might not work out the way that you are anticipating. Be aware of that. Okay. For Libras and Libra risings, this is a new moon in your 2nd house of money, your assets, the way that you make money, the way that you spend money. There is a new chapter unfolding in regards to money. Now, given the way that this is going, This is also going to include that Mars rebirth that's going to happen later this week. Over the weekend, we had that Mars-Uranus opposition. There can have been a physical situation, a physical event, an actual event that suddenly is costing you money, that is suddenly impacting the way that you make money. Some of you might have had a sudden opportunity tied to another person, a job offer, the offer to purchase something, the offer to buy something. You want to buy my stock? I didn't know you had stock. Where did you get that stock? Where did you get that crypto? Where did you get that? There can be financial aspects here. Now, Uranus is in your 8th house. There can have been a sudden situation that involves debt, death, taxes, and inheritance that is going to end up impacting you in some way, because the new moon is in your 2nd house, but it's opposite Uranus in the 8th. There can be an unexpected thing tied to death, debt, taxes, and inheritance, good or bad. Nobody's necessarily looking at death as a bad thing or a good thing, but it can have other results. So be aware of that part. Given the fact that we have this Venus-Mercury sextile that's going on all month. Venus, of course, is your chart ruler. Venus is in your 1st house. There's going to be a lot of attention going on you. There's going to be a lot of attention around you in the decisions that you're making based off of the sextile with Mercury. There can be opportunities that are going to come through in regards to work, in regards to routine, in regards to responsibilities in the weeks ahead. Not necessarily specific to the new moon, not necessarily specific to the Mars rebirth, but in the weeks ahead. I would be very interested for you guys to know the kinds of decisions or opportunity or what you're going to be kind of almost announcing on the 15th whenever we have the exact Venus-Mercury sextile. Because Venus is the one kind of like pushing Mercury along. Venus is wanting certain things to happen. So I do feel like you guys have a very positive decision coming through that's going to have a ripple effect later on. Okay. For the Scorpios and Scorpio risings, is us, babies! A new moon in Scorpio, conjunct our chart ruler, opposite Uranus. Some of us are just seeing all the craziness with other people, but it's like confirming something every time we hear about it. It's validating something every time you hear about it. It's like, I knew that person was shady. I knew this wasn't going to work right. Or, I knew this was going to work well. I knew this was going to go over. I knew they were going to love it. And little by little, as we get through parts of this week going into next week, it's like we overcome a fear. Now, whenever it comes to some of those health things, Mars rules your 6th house of health. The health things that I said in the beginning, I want you to be aware of. Things that are tied to the head, things that are tied to the body. Understand that you are accident prone right now. Be careful. We can have sudden things come through that are unanticipated in this energy. The Mars trine to Neptune can be a sudden issue that impacts kids, that impacts a lover, that impacts a loved one. There can be a sudden eruption of energy going on around you, disruptive new beginning type energy that has the kids feeling confused, that has lovers feeling confused. And some of it can be based off of money. And I'm saying that because of how we started that Mars-Uranus opposition. It included a Mercury-Saturn square. Some of it can be very much based off of money. Some of us can be rolling things out, or we have been rolling things out over the course of the last week, that's going to have an exponential, crazy, fun, enlightening inspiring energy that starts to unfold later this week once we get to that Mars rebirth. And that's because the Mars rebirth is going to be in a trine with Neptune. There's a continuous effect in the energy. And given the fact that this is in our first house, many of us were already going through the motions. We're already going through the pattern. We're already going over everything. And we're going to have certain things arise, get recognized, get awarded, that is seen within us this week and going into next week. Because that Sun-Mars conjunction is happening in our first house, and Mars is one of our chart rulers. Be very, very aware that how powerful your decisions, your word, your ideas, your needs are right now. Some of you are going to have a disruptive energy tied to letting somebody else go, releasing a loved one, releasing a friend, releasing a partner, and you're suddenly breaking off on your own. That can be in a romantic sense, that can be in a physical sense, that can be in a business sense, there can be an actual breaking away from somebody, breaking away from a situation. But the Sun and Mars are going to come into a conjunction. There can also be things that will allow us to come together. There can be exciting things that are coming together. This is a huge, huge 2 weeks for Scorpio risings. This week, the week that we're in, and next week, the final days of the Sun and Mars going through Scorpio. This is a huge 2-week span for Scorpio risings because everything up until this point has been in purge mode. Purge, cleanse, clear. Purge, cleanse, clear. Purge, cleanse, clear. But after this week, no. It is affirming. It is bringing things in. It is showing direction. It is showing the path. It is showing enlightenment. It is showing where we go next, where we focus next, whether that's internal health things, physical things in the world, our purpose, our drive, our ambition, our desires, wherever it goes next, it is showing us something very specific, Scorpio risings. Okay. For Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, secrets, the past, closure, healing, a final nail in the coffin, as well as understanding that some people have had your name in their mouth. Things have been going on behind your back. Things have been going on behind the scenes, and there can be discoveries that get made this week. Some of you have already had a warning of said discoveries, and that would have happened last week. A little bit of a warning going, oh, hey, I think so-and-so's got a problem with you. I don't give a shit about so-and-so. Well, you might have reasons to have a give a shit. You might have reasons. Now, whenever Mercury hit that square to Saturn, right at the start of the Saturn-Uranus opposition that happened last week, many of you arrived somewhere. Many of you announced something, told something to your family members. Many of you made a decision to do something differently. Some of you actually went somewhere you've never been before. You did something you've never done before. And you're in the process of doing this thing that you've never done before. And it is bringing more things to the surface. It is bringing more things to light. Some of you have a responsibility tied to family, your health, family's health, that needs to be dealt with, that needs to be handled. We're realizing that something that was supposed to already be handled wasn't really handled appropriately. And that's going to come to light this week, and that's going to be a big part of the focus. Some of that can have to do with paperwork. Mercury's now in your first. Some of it can have to do with your plans and actions, your communication. Mercury is now in your first. But understand whatever unfolds during the new moon this week, during the Mars-Sun conjunction later this week in that trine to Neptune, there can be things that remark in confusion. There can be things that remark in frustration. There can be sudden events that have already occurred that is going to lead to a fallacy of some sort. You can discover that one of your kids or somebody in your family has been lying about sneaking out of the house, doing something behind your back, doing something that you weren't anticipating, and that is what comes to the surface. Catching somebody in a lie, and then you having to deal with it later, you having to take additional actions later. Understand that there are things that have been going on behind your back that you have not been aware of that are going to come to the surface. They're going to come to light. And after they come to light, they're going to be falling onto your plate. And that's how we start Sagittarius season. The start of Sagittarius season is things falling onto your plate. Be prepared. Be aware. The focus is about to be very much on you. Okay. For Capricorns and Capricorn risings, a new moon in your 11th house of friends and network and colleagues and clients and people that you like to do business with, people that you choose to have in your life, your hopes and your dreams for the future. Given that Venus is now in your 10th house of career, there is hope coming for the future. Given the fact that this new moon is in an opposition to Uranus in that 5th house, the hope can be a sudden shift in luck. The blessings can be a sudden shift in luck, but it can also be a sudden exciting thing surrounding your kids, surrounding loved ones, surrounding children in general. Love, luck, joy, happiness, and children is all 5th house things. Many of you are breaking out of your shell. Saturn is your chart ruler. We had that Mercury-Saturn square that occurred. Jupiter is in that 5th house of love, luck, joy, happiness, romance, and children. Many of us have had a sudden event that is allowing us to start something anew. Start something over again. Start trying differently. Start a new way of thinking. Start a new passion or compassion and something that's going to affect your future. You need to start over again. You're going to start some new things. You are going into uncharted territory. And this uncharted territory for a lot of you is going to be nerve-wracking. But understand the whole rest of this year for you guys, and even going into January of 2024, for Capricorn risings, the most, it is the uncharted territory. It is going into new ground. Some of you are going into a new job. Some of you are starting a new level in your job. Some of you are reconnecting with old friends, and going into this uncharted territory is trying to, 1, catch up with the things that you don't know. 2, learn about something you've never dealt with before. Going into a whole different avenue and a whole different ball game. You have new things coming through. But the new things that are coming through are also very much teaching you a new way of thinking, a new way of communicating, a new way of working through things. There will be new things tied to your commitments, tied to your transit and transportation, new routes to work. If you use a company truck at work, then you're going to get think you got a new truck company coming. You have a new position at your job coming that's going to change your commute. There can be a slew of different changes, especially in regards to your public image, in regards to career that's going on right now. And they're going to be a rippled effect of energy that's going to take place all the way into January. Of any sign out there, the one that is the most going into uncharted territory, it is Capricorn risings right now. Some of you are getting the chance to talk about your feelings, talking about things that have been buried deep below the surface, things that you don't necessarily like to share with everybody. You have the ability to start working through things. This is a great energy for Capricorn risings that are starting therapy or going to be starting a new part in their routine. Some of you are starting to get the idea that you want to do that. You're thinking about it. Just because you don't do it immediately doesn't mean that you're not going to do it. It's very likely it's going to be something that comes up later over the course of the next month. But you have the first inklings and the first ideas towards that energy. Okay. For Aquarius and Aquarius risings, this is a new moon in your 10th house of public image, in your 10th house of career, in your goals, where you're meant to shine in this world, where you're meant to do the best. You've had so many things tied to another person, tied to their situation and their drama and their financial matters that have been weighing you down. And many of you are looking at like, I can't continue dealing with this all the way into the future because you have cost me so much damn money. And what's going to happen is going to be a shift, a new chapter in career, a new beginning. Some of you are relinquishing that business partner that we took on earlier this year. We are relinquishing that relationship that we started earlier this year, or we're relinquishing a relationship or a partnership or a friendship with another person based off of events that happened earlier this year. They might not be from the beginning part of this year, but the shit that got you into where you're at right now could have started earlier this year, specifically around March. Now, some of where you're wanting to go next, some of the goals that you have for the future, some of where you're going to go can be a shock to certain people, specifically family members. Some of you are going to make the decision that you're going to take a career or a job offer in another place. And that, again, is going to have a sudden shift to family. They're like, what do you mean you're going to move to Illinois? Who said you could go to Chicago? We're town folk. Because I'm a country girl, I always think of it this way. We're the country girl moving to the big city. There can be something, an opportunity that arrives in regards to your career that can be a very big shock to the family, but it's allowing you to start something new in regards to finances, in regards to what you're doing next, in regards to your next chapter. A big portion of the energy going into 2024 for Aquarius risings is letting go of the past, leaving the past behind, and finding your personal power. Pluto is going to be coming into your first soon. And for some people, that's going to be a very heavy energy to deal with. For some people, it's going to be a very affirming energy because it's going to be something that's going to exude strength. But anytime you have issues right now that are tied to fear, then we need to pay attention to the Pluto transits for you guys, because that's telling you something that you need to work through and heal to be able to continue, to be able to progress. I'm a Pluto conjunct the Ascendant person. You guys are about to start a 22-year cycle, and you've already had the first glimpse of it earlier this year whenever Pluto went into Aquarius. When Pluto comes back into Aquarius in January, it's going to be there a lot longer this time. He'll do one more pinky toe dip into Capricorn, back into Capricorn, but then whenever he comes back, it's a 22-year cycle, guys. Anytime you are having heavy fear triggers, then we have to focus on what Pluto is activating in your chart, because it is transforming a lot of things for you. And parts of the transformation energy tied to you right now is letting go of the past, the things that have kept you isolated from yourself, from certain people, from your family, because the ability to take back your personal power is coming through. And if you are able to harness that in a positive way, it's going to completely change the atmosphere around you guys and for you guys. There can be a lot of good things coming. And I'm only locked onto Pluto with you guys right now because Pluto is the other ruler of Scorpio. This is a new moon in Scorpio. The Mars rebirth is going to happen in Scorpio. Whenever the Mars rebirth goes exact later this week, it's going to include a Moon-Pluto conjunction. And that's happening on Friday. That day can be very, very triggering for you guys, more so than some of the other signs, but it can also be very humbling, very helpful. There can be things that come to light. There can be things come to the surface. There can be things that come to the surface that rattle the family and rattle family members. So be aware, double-edged sword. As much as this can be a strong, good, positive energy for you guys, it can also have a weight to it. If you're not anticipating it, there can be a big weight involved. Okay. Oh, for Pisces and Pisces risings, we want to get out of town. We're done with everybody. We're done with the people. We're done with the shit. We're ready to start something new. Many of you are starting over. I said this before too. You've been in an energy of starting something over. Taking back your personal power. You are in a level of energy with Saturn in your first. That's not always an energy that is easy to deal with. I'm a Pluto conjunct the Ascendant person, but I'm also a Saturn in the first person. I understand the weight of Saturn and the responsibility that Saturn is putting on you. You are starting over in a responsibility. You are starting over in regards to what you are the authority of, who you are looming over, what you are dealing with. Having a new moon in your 9th house is also taking you closer to your calling, taking you closer to where you want to go, where you need to focus your energies, and what energies are going to have financial gains for you in the future. That's because Mars rules your 2nd house of money, babies. There can be a lot of financial gain that can come next year if you really focus your energy as to what is being revealed this week. On the flip side, it can also be the thing that makes you spend a lot of money. It can cost you a lot of money, depending on how and what reveals itself this week. Mars in the 9th house is about long distance. It's about travel, but it's also about institutions. There can be something that erupts either within yourself or within another person that is making you go into an institution. Now, I can mean this in a couple ways. Going into a courthouse, going into a hospital, going into a school. Something that erupts this week. Something that you didn't know was going on. It's probably been going on for a while, but then somebody got caught. Some of you can just be feeling the need to get out of town, get out of Dodge. I'm sick of everybody's bullshit. I'm sick of the drama, and I need a break. And in the moment, again, we're wanting to break away. We're wanting to travel. We're wanting to go do something else, something that can be very, very healing. I've said this to Pisces risings before. If you're going to travel, you need to go travel and get close to water. If you have a park that has a beautiful pond or something in your neighborhood, go walking around that park as much as you can. I know it's getting colder outside, but I don't know. Saturn and Pisces, I feel like, is really starting to like show us like cold and dry as opposed to cold and wet. So if you have the ability to, if you can withstand going out and going for a run around the pond, or just go walking around the pond, or like here in Tulsa, we have like literally an entire side of our city that is, it goes alongside a river. Like they completely developed part of an entire park system. It's called the River Parks system that goes all down Riverside. Go for a walk near there. You need to be near water. Water is going to be healing. You need activities around that water. Not everybody has the ability to go whitewater rafting right now and stuff like that. So I'm like, you need physical activities, but near water. You're going to get a lot of meditative things in regards to whenever you're going into the shower, a lot of healing things when you're in the shower. Being near water is going to be helpful for you, and it's going to continue to be helpful. But the things that arrive and arise for you in the next 2 weeks is going to be learning moments, discovery, but it's also going to be things that end up impacting your future. Some of you might have the ability to go back to school, or you're thinking about going back to school. You're looking at the idea of taking on new training or something along these lines. You've had something that you've been wanting to work on for a while, but you hadn't been able to do it quite yet. This is that type of energy. Especially if you're wanting to go into more medicine, healing, healer type things. This is a really strong energy for Pisces risings to be able to do that. And you have the right people in your surroundings that can, one, benefit from it, and two, help you along the way. So it's a good energy for you guys. Okay. Okay. I've been ready for this new moon since summer. I'm just being so real about that. I've been ready for this new moon since summer. Whenever you guys have probably, some of you have heard me say this before, some of you really haven't. It kind of depends on how long you've been listening to me. In the Sagittarius full moon, so back at the beginning of June, the terminology and the phrasing that came through at that time was Mars conjunctions. And I've been waiting for the Mars conjunctions, and they finally started here in the last few weeks. The first one was around October 29th. And we had some things that kind of came through during that Mercury-Mars conjunction. But now this week we're having another Mars conjunction. We have that Sun-Mars conjunction. And I'm ready to see what unfolds from that. Because whatever unfolds from that is going to be a huge effect to what's going to happen in Sagittarius season, to where we're going next. And what Sagittarius rules in our chart. We have so much that's about to hit us that we can't see yet, because again, we're going into uncharted territory. The best thing that we can do is be hopeful. The best thing that we can also do is be realistic. That if we're going into uncharted territory, you're talking to somebody you've never thought you would talk to before, you never expected to ever be able to meet a person like this. If you're going into a business that you never thought you'd get this job, it's your Shark Tank moment, but it's like, it's your dream job. If you're going into an energy of like, I have no idea who I am, what I am, where I'm at. I've never been in this situation before. I never thought I'd be in this situation again. We're going to be walking on eggshells a little bit. We're going into uncharted territory a lot of bit, and we're going to make mistakes. But some of us are not going to realize we're making mistakes until later on. We're saying something in the moment, not knowing that the full recourse, the full effect, the full turnaround, the full repercussion, the full amount of whatever it is in this moment. We don't realize how big it's going to be, and we're not going to until we get into parts of December and January. Some of us are going to be going into this month with a lot of confidence. This next part of the month, going into the rest of November into December, a lot of boost, a lot of confidence, a lot of hope, a lot of regaining and strength. Be mindful. Be mindful of your words. Be mindful of your actions. Be mindful of how you continue. Some of us are going to have a physical thing come to light this week. Something physical in the body. A physical manifestation that's going to come through. And again, be aware of that. Prepare yourselves for that. Even if you don't feel it or you don't see it, that doesn't mean that you're not going to see somebody around you dealing with it. You might be dealing with the real world effect of like, I'm starting a new job and this is my uncharted territory. But your roommate or your sister or your brother or your mom or your dad or Uncle Sam, whoever, has a different effect, has a physical effect. It didn't skip them. They're not getting something new in the big real world picture-esque type thing. It's manifesting in their body. There's a huge part of this energy that can be in a real world effect as much as a internal effect. Watch for both. Be prepared for both. Whatever unfolds this week is going to be huge in Sagittarius season. It's taking us into places we've never dealt with before. It's taking us into new territory, into uncharted waters, into something that we still can't completely fathom in this moment. But that doesn't mean that it's not going to be important. And once it starts to unfold, and once it starts to reveal itself, and once it starts to fully take shape, then we'll have a better idea of where we're going next. We might still be stumped for a little bit going, oh, wow, oh, okay, cool. I didn't think this is all going to happen this way. I need time to process. I need time to think. And you'll have a few days to think. But then you're also going to have a few days where you're going to have to deal with a lot of harsh reality, a lot of big responsibilities, and a lot of stepping up. You will not have very much time to process, because as soon as we get through the full aspects of the Mars rebirth, the sun is going to go into Sagittarius and immediately hit a square to Saturn. A few days later, Mars is going to go into Sagittarius and immediately hit a square to Saturn. We will immediately go into the level up, the next part. We will not have much time to process. We will not have a whole lot of time to linger on something. So whenever arises, whatever comes to light, whatever comes to the surface, process it in the moment, if you can. Really think about what this is going to mean for you. If you have a physical event that results in later on having to go to regular forms of therapy, anticipate that. Having to go into the doctor's office, having to go in for additional checks, having to go in for routines of scans, things along these lines. If you're getting recognition in your job or getting a new job, then the next forms of responsibility are going to be showing your worth, showing that you deserve that raise, showing that you deserve that promotion, showing that you're the right person for this new job. You won't have very much time to linger. And we'll be far more aware of this uncharted territory that we're going into after the Mars rebirth. So as we go into the rest of November. This is a very big week and it's a very powerful week. But it is the entire week. It's not just the new moon, and it's not just the Mars rebirth. It's not just the new moon opposite Uranus. It's not just the new moon conjunct Mars. It's all of it. It's all of it. But it's not going to be fast. In hindsight, 2020, it's going to feel like fast. Like, oh my God, that all happened in like a 2-week span. But right now in the moment, it's slow. It's not a fast moving energy. Some of our mental energy is moving a little bit faster because, Mercury's in Sag. But the actual events around us, they're unfolding slowly. We're in the baby step mode. Little bitty steps, little bitty revelations, little bitty movements. Little. But then afterwards, it's going to pick up really fast. And in a really big way. There's your warning. Okay. Reminder, I am still running the special on the readings. So birth chart readings are $25. If you are wanting a birth chart reading and a one-on-one session with me, that is $50. And then if you know somebody in your life that they would benefit from a reading, but they're not ready to pull the trigger, or you just know them because they're reluctant on everything and they're fixed signs, and I don't like change, I am also selling gift certificates for those readings at that price, but you have to purchase within the month of November. If we get into December, my prices are going to go back up. So again, all month of November is whenever I'm running that special. I've already been emailing and messaging people back. I'm sorry about last week and having migraines all week, guys. There's a reason I'm doing all my episodes right now on my glasses. It's because I'm not trying to put any more pressure on my head. So most of you have already got a message back from me. If I missed one, then I'll probably catch it here in a little bit. I don't think I went through everything on Facebook, but hit me up with your questions. Hit me up with your concerns. I always try to reply in the comments. I might not reply immediately, but I do try to reply as best as possible. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the listeners. Thank you for the new people that are tuning in, and subscribe.